Thank you for making this study hard to hear. I will be presenting on development of the teaching material with experience-based role-playing game for programming thinking. Please listen to the end. Since analytical technology for big data such as artificial intelligence AI technique has been remarkably developing in recent years, education has also been shifting from a knowledge-oriented learning system to education to foster one's ability for problem finding and solving. As enforcing the teaching guidelines for elementary schools in Japan from April 2020, it will introduce learning activities where students can learn a necessary logical thinking ability for letting a computer process their intended task processing during the programming experience as a programming education. However, class designed for learning logical thinking and programming thinking is not established yet at present. In addition, because program is normally created by using English words and alphabetic variables, it requires a certain level of English ability to learn programming. Yet, an insufficient English ability becomes a problem to create a program in the primary education stage. Furthermore, teachers with less experience and knowledge of programming education also cause a bottleneck. According to Hiroki Manabe 2013, 1. There is a great effect on the comprehension level of algorithm in computer science CS education depending on teaching materials. In addition, according to Shinobu Arai 2019, 2. It is said that a comprehension level might be increased when introducing tangible teaching materials, experience-based teaching materials with use of a physical body to programming education in elementary school. According to Takaharu Ishizuka 2014, 3. He introduces a case example of CS class with unplugged computing for elementary school students. The present study aims to examine development of teaching materials and educational effects by unplugged computing in programming education with a focus on programming thinking for information education at elementary schools. Moreover, it also discusses measures to practice the class at elementary schools in Japan. Experimental overview. We examine the usefulness when using the past questions of Bebers as a teaching material in CS class for students in the 5th grade at elementary school. The experiment was conducted twice 45 minutes each in the class with 101 students from 3 5th grade classes at elementary school A located near the college. For asking the class impression from the students, we carried out a questionnaire survey with use of a 4-point scale for interest, difficulty, and fun of class with Bebers. The results are shown in Figure 1. From the results, it can be said that the students may feel a little difficult for Bebers as a teaching material, but they still had so much fun to study. In other words, programming induction by unplugged computing such as Bebers can be effective as a class in elementary school. ArgaLogic is a problem-solving game software for learning logical thinking algorithm as programming basics like playing a video game. We aim to improve programming thinking ability and examine a class designed blended with visual programming language and algorithm learning material as well as its educational effect. After choosing total 13 students, 1 student from the 1st grade, 5 students from the 5th grade, 7 students from the 6th grade of Computer Club at a neighboring elementary school A, and total 19 students, 1 student from the 4th grade, 2 students from the 5th grade, 16 students from the 6th grade of Computer Club at a neighboring elementary school B. We made a comparison between elementary school A, the students who learn AlgoLogic in each lesson for programming education with Scratch, and elementary school B, the students who only learn programming education. We adopted the questionnaire prepared by Hirose 2019, 5, as a questionnaire for assessing programming thinking. The comparison results between pretest and protest at the 2 elementary schools are as shown below. From the results, it was found that programming induction incorporated with AlgoLogic as unplugged computing actually improved programming thinking. Scenario of teaching material. The following scenario was explained to elementary school students. You are a citizen living in kingdom. One day, the prince and the princess were abducted. Now you will form a group of 4 people, and let's rescue the prince and the princess, and return to kingdom as quickly as possible. You need to be careful in the rescue mission because there is a pitfall to block you on the way. Rules for teaching material. With the following rules, we set a competition game played by two groups. From the start, everyone aims to rescue the captured prince and princess and achieve to reach the goal. Mark your desired direction with a circle and also fill in the number of squares for moving forward. At the start, you always need to move to an upward direction and avoid a pitfall. When rescuing the prince and the princess, you must not pass them but stop for them. A player can win when reaching a goal by fulfilling the above described conditions with fewer courses of action. The examples of practice question are shown in Figure 2 and 3. Figure 2 and 3 are questions for explanation and questions for group competition respectively. For accomplishing the scenario, the player will begin a game from the start square and move forward toward the square of the prince and the princess in no particular order. Then carefully consider the path to the goal by avoiding a pitfall. The player will show the steps of the path with the card shown in Figure 4 and 5, then write the card number at the top right of the card. The experiment examines whether the proposed experience-based RPG teaching material can be actually practiced in class at elementary schools. Subject: 18 teachers who actually teach at the public elementary school A located near the college. After conducting class for the subjects with use of experience-based RPG teaching material 25 minutes and flowchart teaching material 25 minutes, we carried out the research with a questionnaire verifying a positive response level for programming education, an anxiety level for programming induction, a usefulness for students by experience-based RPG teaching material, an introduction possibility of experience-based RPG teaching material in class, a usefulness level for students by flowchart teaching material, and an introduction possibility of flowchart teaching material in Class Table 2. The aggregate results for each item were calculated full marks, 10 points. The impression of programming education and teaching materials by active teachers at elementary schools was as shown below. A comparison between experience-based RPG teaching material and flowchart teaching material. According to Table 1, elementary school teachers consider experience-based RPG teaching material as more useful for students and would like to introduce it in their class. In addition, almost all teachers considered experience-based RPG teaching material as useful in their response usefulness, average 7.83. We divided the teachers into two groups. Teachers N equals 14 with positive response and teachers N equals 4 with negative response toward programming education and made a comparison in terms of usefulness and introduction with experience-based RPG teaching material. Regardless of a positive response level for programming education, the teachers consider experience-based RPG teaching material as useful and would like to introduce it in their class. Similarly, we divided the teachers into two groups. Teachers with no anxiety N equals 6 and with anxiety N equals 12 for programming induction, and then made a comparison in terms of usefulness and introduction with experience-based RPG material. From the results, we found that teachers with anxiety for programming education showed positive to experience-based RPG teaching material, but there was a significant difference in the actual class introduction compared to those teachers with low anxiety. Then, we also found that it will be important to provide a support to those teachers with anxiety for programming education when widely using experience-based RPG teaching material. We divided the teachers into two groups, teachers N equals 14 with positive response and teachers N equals 4 with negative response toward programming education, then made a comparison in terms of usefulness and introduction for flowchart teaching material. For the teachers with negative response toward programming education, there was a significant difference, less than 1%, in both usefulness and introduction for flowchart teaching material. From the results, we found that it requires teacher induction for understanding programming induction when practicing flowchart teaching material in class. Similarly, we divided teachers into two groups, teachers with no anxiety N equals 6 and teachers with anxiety N equals 12 toward programming education, then made a comparison in terms of usefulness level and introduction level for flowchart teaching material. From the results, we found that usefulness and introduction of flowchart teaching material were not related to anxiety for programming education. From these results, we gained clues to widely practice the class with programming thinking. For activating the class with programming thinking, it is important to effectively carry out education to deepen understanding of programming thinking and also teacher education to remove teachers' anxiety to introduce programming thinking into his/her class by placing the right people in the right positions. The present study aims to examine development of teaching materials and education effect for programming education by unplugged computing in information education at elementary schools, with a focus on programming thinking. Furthermore, it also needs to discuss measures to practice the class in the Japanese elementary schools. For that reason, we created experience-based RPG teaching material adaptable in all grades, both the lower and higher grades at elementary schools. Experience-based RPG teaching material was created for acquiring logical thinking by what kind of combination is required to realize a series of activities as one's intention, or how one can get closer to his/her intended activity by considering how to combine symbols to respond to each movement and also how such combination should be improved. After 18 active elementary school teachers conducted experience class with experience-based RPG and flowchart teaching material, it was found that experience-based RPG teaching material could be easier to introduce to students. For the introduction of experience-based RPG teaching material, it is important to provide a follow-up session to teachers with anxiety of programming education. For the introduction of flowchart teaching material, it is important to provide an awareness of positive awareness for programming induction to teachers by a lecture informing a significance of programming education. As a future issue, we need to clarify education effects after the actual introduction of experience-based RPG teaching material to students. Moreover, it is necessary to discuss education for actually creating a program, not unplugged computing. On this point, we are considering to introduce a relation for number and quantity in mathematics. Acknowledgement. References. Thank you.